Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sessions. My name is Jake,
And I'm Russ.
and tonight is all about our most recent software update, Jenner.
Yeah, this is a really exciting one. It's been a while since we've done a free system software update from Origin, and we're here to tell you all about our latest. That's coming out November 21st, so we're getting ahead of the game on that one.
Yep.
As usual, with Shaper Sessions, welcome to the show. For anyone who hasn't been here before, we have a comment section. We really encourage you to put your questions in the comment section, and if you're joining us live, we're going to do a live Q&A at the end of every show. We also do giveaways during that live Q&A at the end of every show. We're giving away a swag pack, a shirt, and an 8mm collet today.
Heck yeah.
Super exciting. And I really mean it for this one. Please ask those questions in the comments. We've got a lot of information to cover. I've got my laptop up here. We've got our whiteboard that I'm going to be squinting at during the show. But I'm a little afraid that we're going to miss something. So
There are a lot of things we want to touch on today.
If you feel like we've overlooked something, please ask that question in the comments, and those will be sent to us at the end of the show.
And answer that poll question, which I believe is...
Right, that is, what is your preferred digital design software? One of the features that we're going to look at that's new with Jenner can be set a lot of different ways. One of those is with a couple of different digital design tools. So we're curious, what digital design software do you use? Tell us in the poll question, and that's how you enter that giveaway. We know that this is going to be a lot of information to cover. This might be kind of a heady one. We do still have some cut demos here for you all, but hang on with us and you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. And it's a really exciting one. This most recent software update has furthered Origin even further into this really approachable, usable power tool. And now we'll even help you not accidentally cut to a depth that you didn't mean to with depth encoding. So it's a really exciting feature.
The two things that we're going to talk about today, the two new features with this software update are encoded depth and manual Z-touch. We'll go into those deeply in depth, but let's take a step back here. For anyone who's new to Origin, what even is a free system update?
That's right. So it has been a while since we've done one, but just like with anything that has software, we are constantly working to improve the tool, whether it be stability, performance, all these different things, and of course, new features. So Jenner is our most recent software update. If you just received your tool, you're probably on Inverness.
Exactly.
So come the 21st, you'll be able to upgrade to Jenner.
Yeah, exactly. And like Jake mentioned, there are always performance and usability updates going on. Those are kind of under the hood things, so we're not going to talk about those really explicitly. But we do have these two awesome new features to share with you all, and we're going to go over all of that. To get ahead of a couple of questions here about this software update, Jake, which origins are eligible for this software update, for this system update?
Every single origin.
Okay.
No matter what you got, you're good to go.
Okay. Awesome. Check that one off. How do I update my origin? And how's it going to prompt me to update?
Well, we always encourage people to have their tool on Wi-Fi, mainly for this reason, but also because it makes it streamlined to get files on and off. But as long as your tool is on Wi-Fi, come the 21st, you will see a little blue icon up in the right corner of your screen. On the settings window, go ahead and tap that, and it will say, ready for update. Give it a few minutes, and it will be ready to go.
Yeah, and for anyone new to Origin over the last year, this will be your first software update of many more to come. But for people who have been with us from the start, this is our 10th free system update. So it just goes to show we're coming on to letter J now. Currently, we're on Inverness. We're going to Jenner, which is a cute little coastal town here in California. And that's our 10th software update. So it's really awesome, and we're really proud of what our software development team has done with this one. So with that, what do you say we dive into these features?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing that we want to talk about today is manual Z-touch. We've done this a lot in the show. In fact, we've done it almost every time we've cut. Normally what you do to Z-touch with Origin is you go into that Z-touch menu and you hit Z-touch, and it automatically does it for you. We've gone into details on Z-Touch in our Origin Pro Tips session, so if you want to learn more about automatic Z-Touch, go back and check that out. All of our sessions are available on demand at sessions.shapertools.com. But let's go over to the Origin screen here, Goose, and check out what Z-Touch looks like now. So here we are in a plate workspace. If we hit Z-Touch here, you'll notice this automatic button. I don't know if in the past that said automatic or it just said Z-Touch.
Just said Z-Touch or cancel.
Z-Touch. So now you've got two different options. This automatic button over here is going to do the same thing that Z-Touch has always done, which is automatically probe the top of the work surface for you so that you can really easily set your depths. No aluminum bar or any of those other weird CNC tricks needed. It just does it automatically for you. Now, there are a few cases, though, where in the past you might have had a tricky time touching off on the work surface itself. What we've recommended in the past is that you move your Origin off of, typically it's a soft surface, right?
Soft woods, foams,
Yep.
whatever it may be.
Soft surface where you have those problems, we would recommend that you move Origin off of that soft surface onto a hard surface where you can do that Z-Touch. But now with manual Z-Touch, you'll be able to touch off on these soft surfaces directly. So let's see what that looks like if we do a manual Z-Touch on this Sys1 foam that I'm customizing. And we'll come back to the Sys1 foam a couple of times in this demo. So the first time we manual Z-Touch, every time these instructions are going to come up. It's really simple. You've got the green button to lower the bit, the red button to raise the bit. Very similar to when you lower and raise the bit for probing your grid. I'm going to remove this dust guard here so that Jake can come in with the external cam and show what's going on. I'm going to press this green button here. And as I press the green button, you can see Origin spindle lowering. I'm pressing the red button. It's going up, lowering, and coming up. And basically the way this works is a short button press will move the spindle a very small amount. Like that's a short button press, very small increments. As I hold that button, that increment is going to widen, not an increment, I should say. It's going to speed up. It's going to move more quickly. So if you have a very deep pocket that you're trying to Z-Touch into, if you hold that button down for longer, the spindle is going to speed up. So I'm just moving this spindle down until it just barely rubs on my cutting surface. And when I look in here, I can see just a little scuff. You could also maybe rub a piece of paper under there and feel if it catches. Once that's done, let's go back to the Origin screen here. I'm going to click Set 0 and Finish. I'm going to come back to this workspace that I was in. And now I've Z-touched on this foam. I haven't marred the foam in any way. The Z-touch is going to give me those perfect depths every time on difficult surfaces.
Yep. So think if you're using sharp cutters like the standard engraving bit, or if you're doing really, really fine work, you got like a 32nd inch bit in there. You're doing fret work for guitars, something where like maybe it's not the material, but it's actually the bit that you don't want to put the entire weight of Origin on top of. Perfect opportunity to use manual Z-Touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, that covers it. So pretty quick demo, but that one's going to be really useful for you if you're working with foam, sharp cutters, or small cutters. Now for the meat of the show. This is going to take us the whole rest of the time. Ask a lot of questions. We've got a couple demos. Encoded depth. Let's just start from the top. What is encoded depth?
Encoded depth. Basically, before you even start cutting, before you even go to the tool, you can tell Origin what depth a particular pass should be. So that when you actually go into it, you're not guessing, you're not looking back on a piece of paper or back at your computer. You have it right there.
Yeah, the really handy thing for me has been not needing to write down a bunch of notes and take those from the computer to the shop or put them as guide text in my file and save them that way. It's kind of cumbersome, right? So we've encoded those depths right in the files. We've done that a couple of ways for this show. We'll show you all the ways in which we do that. But first, let's show you what encoded depths look like on the tool. Jake's got a real cool tenon demo set up over here. So I'll pass this over.
Bingo.
Love that saved workspace action every time, by the way.
So if you've been with us for a while, you've probably seen this tri-stool project. It has a very characteristic double-stepped tenon. The reason we did that double-step tenon is because you can do an 1.25 or an 1.5 deep tenon with the standard 3/4 cutter that comes with Origin. Because and do finish passes basically, given that you have two different steps of the tenon. The tricky thing about this has always been remembering and not messing up on your depth, because you're inputting it every time, and you want to make sure that your mortise and your tenons are going to be bang on. And if you're in production mode, you're not thinking about numbers. You're just cutting. So we want to make sure that we make that process as fluid as possible. So we're going to get you a little reminder of where you should be depth-wise.
Exactly.
All right, so I've gone ahead and already cut some of the pockets just to get rid of that. But if you notice, I have two paths here. My smaller tenon and a larger tenon down below. My current depth is set to 1.27 inches. That's my final depth. If I try to cut this inside, boom, it's going to give me that big, bold exclamation point saying, whoa, that's too deep for this particular path. Do not plunge. And if I go over here, I get the green check mark, and I know I'm good to go.
So I've got a question, Jake. How do we know what depth you want to cut to if you've got that exclamation point on there?
If I hover over it, I tap that depth, it's going to tell me right on the right-hand side what my actual encoded depth is. In this case, 0.625.
So this page is what's going to be new for everybody right over here. This little window to the right of the calculator. This is your encoded depth. This is where that number is displayed, and this is where on Tool, we'll get back into this later, on Tool you can edit or discard that encoded depth as well. So when it comes down to the UI, the user interface of Origin, that's what's new specifically.
All right, so I'm going to set my depth to 0.2625. And now I get that green check mark. Now when I come over to that second path that I know is going to be deeper, I have a new icon that's saying we're still in the green zone, we're still okay, but we're actually going to continue going deeper than that. So two different markers, or a couple different markers.
Three different markers so far. You've got farther to go.
Yep.
You've got the green check mark that says you're right where you need to be, and then you've got the red exclamation point that says, hold up, you're about to go too far.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these. Couple of passes. Do a rough offset.
Yeah, you're going to go straight to 0.625?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Help me keep track of the cuts over here.
Got to make sure I automatically Z-touch off the top of my tenon.
Right, always double check your Z-touch. Yeah, get that dust guard. I'm going to step off to the side over here so that the noise from the router doesn't drown out my microphone, so that I can narrate a little bit as Jake cuts. So what's really handy about this encoded depth is, especially when you have two files, two cut paths that are really close to each other, like this, these two tenon steps are nearly on top of each other, it makes it really difficult to make a mistake, which we've done plenty of times. I think we've even made this mistake live on the show, where you go to the cut path that you didn't intend to cut and you accidentally cut it a little bit too deep. And so once Jake's done cutting this tenon to the correct depth, he's going to do a roughing pass and a finishing pass. We'll show you what it looks like when you accidentally try to cut this path of the tenon too deep, or what happens when you try to cut it past that encoded depth. See a little bit of screen fiddling here. It's maybe setting the offset to that finishing pass, if I'm judging this correctly. And for anyone new to Origin as a tool, not just new to Jenner, our latest system update, what Origin is doing as Jake cuts is basically auto-correcting for any error that he introduces into the system, which is pretty stinking cool.
Just like that. I was trying to illustrate the point that if I went like 1.29, it would give me that.
Okay, gotcha.
That big marker again.
So did you do the demo of actually trying to press the green button when your depth is set too deep?
I didn't. but I
Let's
should.
show that. Let's
Yes.
show that because it's really useful. Or we could show that when we do the sauce hinge demo as well.
Let's go ahead and so I have this top one, which is actually supposed to be 0.625. I have my other depth of 1.27.
This is that trick of when your cut paths are just so close to each other. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one you're about to activate.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and ignore that, but it's going to give me a warning. That cut depth, 0.127, exceeds the encoded path. Would you like to cut anyway? Of course, you can cut through it. You can cancel. You can hide the warnings, and basically, if you hit that hide warning sign, it's gonna hide the warnings for the rest of, basically until you power cycle the tool.
Yeah, the rest of your cut session until you power cycle the tool. And so there are some situations where that warning is going to be very useful. The best use case is right here that Jake illustrated, where you have two cut paths really close to each other, and you don't want to mistake a shallower depth for a deeper depth pass. Where that could be annoying, though, is what if I have a file that's designed for 1/2 inch thick plywood and I want to cut it out of 3/4 inch plywood. Basically, every time I cut through that plywood to full depth, there would be a warning that says, hey, you're going to 0.75 rather than 0.5 inches that the file's designed for. That's why we put that override or that hide warnings there. So you can override as needed, or you can just completely hide those warnings if you know that for the rest of this project, you're going to be personally responsible and conscious about the depths that you choose for all of your passes.
Yep. Or heck, you could just adjust the actual encoded depth for the rest of that session.
That too.
Directly on tool.
Yep.
Cool.
So that's how that works. One last icon that we should show you is what happens if you remove the encoded depth. So if you hit that trash can, that's going to unset the depth for that pass, and now you have no icon. So if you go back over to that pass, there are none of those 3 icons that we showed you. It's just that standard tool depth icon. And if we wanted to reset that, Jake, let's show everyone how we reset that on tool.
So we're in the depth setting. We have an unset encoded depth. Just go ahead and tap that and enter. This actually wants to be 0.625.
Mm-hmm.
Hit done.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yep.
Automatically, I'm over, so I want to make sure that I go 0.625. Bingo.
There you go. And you just saw there the difference between the encoded depth setting and the tool cut depth setting.
Yes.
All right.
Right on.
Shall we move on to another demo? I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. And here's a really cool thing about encoded depths. They can be baked into files that are already existing on ShaperHub, like the entire hardware library.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So there's 2 ways that comes in. We'll review this again in more detail. Well, actually, I guess we're doing this now. We're doing the sauce hinge. All of our hardware catalog is going to have those encoded depths baked in now. So you're used to the annotations, which tell you, hey, this pass is 0.453 inches deep. But that's in blue guide text. It's a little cumbersome. We've taken all of those depth annotations and moved them to encoded depth. You still have the depth annotations for people who are on old, outdated system software, but for everyone who's updating to Jenner, you're going to have encoded depths on all of these files. And not just that, a lot of our files on ShaperHub are already going to have encoded depths regardless of the creator, and that's because in secret, our Fusion 360 exporter has been exporting encoded depths all along. So if you're the kind of nerd who goes into your SVG text file and reads what's actually going on behind the scenes there, you'll have seen a cut depth setting in that SVG file that has been exported from Fusion 360. And when we go through all of the ways of loading encoded depths into your file, we will show you how to do that with Fusion 360 as well.
It's all about the long game.
Yeah.
All
All right. So hardware.
Same situation here. I'm coming from cutting a tenon, so that last depth of 0.625 is already set on my tool depth. I put it down on my plate setup right here where I want to cut a sauce hinge into the side of my cabinet. And I'm going to get that warning. I'm over depth. Let's go ahead and hit it. 0.219 for that first depth. There we go. We're in the green. And if I come to that center part, because sausages have that double-stepped depth pattern, I know that I have some work to do here still.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and rip this
Let's
out
cut
real
it.
quick. But you should always Z-touch off of
You
the plate.
should always Z-touch. Yeah, that's right. Always Z-touch off of the workpiece. And now, so exactly what's handy about this is you've seen some of our plate shows. This plate template was preloaded and already set up from a previous show that we did. So what's super handy about that is that you can go back in as soon as Origin sees the workspace that you've already been using. You can go right back to that workspace, and all of your templates are completely saved, and you're ready to use them at absolutely any time. So where that's really handy is setting and editing the encoded depth on tool. That's going to save with your workspace, and so anytime you go back to that workspace, those encoded depths will still be there.
Just like that. By the way, I'm cutting this thin little side panel to our cabinet, so I have the
leveling feet.
the leveling feet on my plate so that everything is nice and stable.
Yeah, beautiful.
And there we go.
Great. Love it. Yeah, let's put it on the Origin cam.
I mean,
Classic sauce hinge. Done it a million times, but it always is fun to me just seeing the edge quality on
Indeed.
those, because there's really no room for error. I think that's all the cutting demo that we have today, Jake.
yeah.
What do you think?
I
Time
think
to
s-
pop over to the computer?
Yeah, now it's talking about how did we get here, as far as how are all these things already baked in? How do you get it baked into yourself? There's a couple different ways to do it.
Yeah, right on. This is a good time for a quick PSA. We're doing a live Shaper session right now. Thanks for joining us. There's Q&A going in the comments. Hopefully you've noticed. Drop any questions that you have in that comment section, and our guy Ted, who's working the comments today, will put those in a document, send them to us via the internet, and at the end of the show, we will read and answer those live. Also, please answer the poll question that pops up at the bottom of your screen. That is, what is your preferred digital design software? We're going to talk about a couple different digital design programs and how they relate to encoded depths. And that will enter you to win our giveaway today, which is a swag pack, a shirt, and what's the last thing?
8mm collet. I was just looking around to see if I have one handy, but an 8mm collet, which opens up the world to a whole nother realm of cutters.
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's pull up the computer. We've got 4 fundamental ways to encode depths with for Origin. Those are with Shaper Studio, which is our latest digital design bit of software. We've got Autodesk Fusion 360, which we've had an exporter for a really long time. We'll just do a quick demo of that, how you export a file from Fusion 360, and all those files come with encoded depths included.
It's a 3D CAD
2
program. That's
3D
really
CAD.
common.
Yep. 3 is on tool. We've messed with this a little bit, but we'll come back and just revisit that to make sure that you know everything that you need to know. And then 4 is Shaper Hub files, which we've also kind of talked about hardware catalog, but we'll look at some other Shaper Hub projects as well. Okay, so let's hop into Studio here, for example. And before actually we do that, let's show off what we're working with here. This is a project that I just finished. We used to have all of our hand tools over here, but we were running out of space. We got too many hand tools now, if there is such a thing. So I just made this, I gotta say, pretty slick, customized Sys1 sustainer for my hand planes. I've got a little brass hammer that I made and a marking gauge that my girlfriend got me for my birthday last year. Very sweet. And so I wanted a nice little place to store these. And so I designed this with a combination of tools, but the last thing that I used was not Fusion 360, Shaper Studio, for planning the cut depths and making sure that all my files were nice and cleaned up for Origin with that plan and review function. So now with a little bit of context, if we go back into the computer, we can see what's going on in here. This is my design. What's super cool about Studio is that it allows you to import and remix any file that's on ShaperHub. So I had to create all of these files for the hand planes, the marking gauge, the hammer, but this Sys1 outline I actually imported from a project that we have on ShaperHub. That was really convenient. I've got all of these paths here, and now what I want to do is plan this and review it so that I know what to expect when I get to origin, and this was really helpful for me. If we go to plan mode here, you can see that I've set all of these cuts to pocket because I want to pocket them out first, or I did when I performed the project. And since all of my tools are different depths, especially this marking gauge, which has different depth steps in it, I wanted to pre-plan those depths. And what this allowed me to do was, like we said, not put those depths in blue guide text and not have to scribble down all my depths on a piece of scrap paper and bring them into a shop where I'm just going to lose it. So really convenient to have this in here. So let's go back to the screen. I can click on a couple of these, and we've done this before, but we'll just show you again. This is that depth field right there. So that's a pocketing cut, and that depth is going to be 1.75 inches for that pass. The hammer is a lot slimmer, so I set that to 0.8 inches based on a measurement. And this marking gauge, I've got 3 different segments. I've got 1.25 inches for the wide face of the marking gauge. I've got 0.625 inches for the barrel adjuster, and then I've got 0.5 inches for the shaft to nest that in. And really convenient to set all of these in plan. Now, when I go over to review, this is the magic. You can see the different depths of all of the different files, kind of visualize those, and you can see what you're going to expect when you cut this. So if we zoom in, for example, to this marking gauge, I didn't overhang these rectangles at all, so we've got little cusps here. I knew I was going to have to come back and get those with a chisel, but I can see that everything's going to fit. All my corners have enough clearance and everything, and when I move over to origin, the real magic of this is that it automatically synchronizes to my files, and it shows right up on tools. So this is the same setup that I used to cut that foam. And now you can see, if I go over to that workspace, if I go into design and import in here, that Sys1 is automatically synchronized right there. So super convenient. I imported that. It's still in this workspace. And now if I go over to cut and hover over these profiles, they're inside cuts because when I did this, I already did the pocketing pass and I switched them to inside cuts. When I imported this, because those were set to pockets in Studio, they would come in as pockets on tool. But let's see. So I'm looking at this. I can see that icon up here, like Jake has said, means that I have not gone to the fully encoded depth. And you can see right here, encoded depth for that cut, 1.75 inches. If I come over to this marking gauge and I hit that encoded depth, it shows me, hey, cut that to 0.5 inches. And if I come over to this other part of the marking gauge over here, this is going to be a little deeper. It says, hey, cut that to 0.625. So super handy, saved me a ton of time and saved me from making a lot of mistakes on that one also. So really happy with that. Any questions on Studio? Anything that I left out? Anything I left out, Jake? Ask questions in the comments.
No, I think
Okay.
I think you nailed it.
Let's show the people Fusion 360. So we've had this exporter for a long time. Sam does a lot of really good work updating and maintaining this, making sure that it works really well for everybody. Give me a second here, Goose, while I update my screen. So this is going to be a quick one. We're not doing a 3D modeling demo here. We're not trying to get real deep into the weeds on this. But for people who know 3D modeling or even know just sketching in Fusion 360, this is how you get a file out, and this is what it's going to look like on tool. So let's pop over to the screen here. I've got just this file here. It's kind of like a stair step. Each of these depths is 1/4 inch deeper than the one before it. And all that I do, typically you're going to be in the solid tab here. All you do to export this is first download the Shaper export to origin extension. but I've downloaded that already, and I'm going to click that shaper logo. Now, there are a lot of different export types. Most of these export depths, I will give you a heads up that export sketches do not export depths, because sketches are only in one plane. They are basically 0 depth. But this body and any faces that I have, those have depths assigned to them. So I'm gonna click the default, just select single body here. I'm gonna select that face because that's the highest face and I want that to be my reference. I'm gonna click OK. Where do I want to save this? I'm gonna save it as, this is terrible. Don't do this at home. I'm going to save it as 1A just because I want to make sure that it's saved to the top of my folder structure so that it's easy to find. Organize your desktop files, everyone. So we've saved that. How do I get it onto Origin? I'm going to go to My Files over here on ShaperHub. Just upload that file from desktop. This is why I did that, so that it's right at the top so we don't have to scroll through all my files. Open. Uploading complete, and you can see that file right there. Now it's going to sync to the tool, and let's see what that looks like.
Hop over into import, and look at that with the gradient and everything.
Right there on top. And we'll just plunk this down onto the workstation surface just to see what the depths look like on this.
So we can tell right off the bat, our first one is overshot. It's supposed to be 0.25. Our next one, 0.5, and so on and so forth, 0.75.
Perfect. That's exactly what we were looking for. And there should be an outside pass on that for the outside of the whole body.
And that is 1.
Because that's the complete thickness of that part. So pretty cool. Quick
cool.
demos. I love the quick demos because they're pretty magical. I am wary of the quick demos because I know there are going to be a lot of questions, but we're here to answer them. So please ask those questions in the comments. And again, Ted will send those to us at the end of the show. Okay, so we've got Studio, we've got Fusion 360, we've got On Tool. So for example, let's kind of start from scratch here. We've edited depths on Tool, but let's say that we're making a new file and we're using On Tool CAD to design it, right? So maybe it's just a circle, for example. You know, Jake?
Let's go ahead and create a 2-inch diameter circle. And we want to be in the cut mode to make sure to edit these encoded depths.
Now you can see there's no icon because we haven't set that depth yet in encoded depths.
And it just looks like it used to back on Inverness. So we want to go ahead and set that to 1/2 inch. And now, being that I'm at 0.453, I still have a little ways to go. Looking for that green check mark.
Tool depth. Yep.
And we're good to go.
And now, I think this is an okay time. I want to share one pro tip about setting encoded depths. Sure. Remember this pro tip? It's that if you type the encoded depth into the calculator, into the tool depth calculator, and then hit the edit encoded depth button, it will update your encoded depth. So it's a little bit of a shortcut. So let's try that with 0.75. Now hit that edit button. There you go.
Boom.
So it's a little bit of a shortcut there for you guys, a kind of a different way to do it. I would default, if you're just learning, to just hit the edit button first and then punch in your numbers, because it can be easy to get confused between the tool depth, the cut depth, and the encoded depth, which are kind of two sides of the same coin. But if you're looking for a little shortcut, if you type that tool depth in and then hit the encoded depth edit button, it's going to prompt you to save that as the encoded depth.
Yep.
Okay.
I like that.
I hope that wasn't over the top. We're getting real into the weeds here. This, ask questions and we'll demo that again at the end of the show. Okay. So I think that covers On Tool, right?
I think so.
And last but not least, ShaperHub files. So let's look, for example, for a ShaperHub project. Let's look for that tripod stool, exactly, that we were working with before. So I'm going to go back to ShaperHub here. Like we said before, all the hardware catalog is updated with encoded depths now. So you want to install Lamello Cabanillo furniture connectors. You just sync that to your files, and that's going to show up on Origin, and it's going to have these depths that are annotated also as encoded depths. So we've done that with the sauce hinge. That's super. I also want to show you the tripod stool. We'll search for that in projects. Tripod stool here. This was built and exported with Fusion 360. The tenon file that Jake was working with today was this tripod stool tenon v3. And we've made sure that these depths are correct before the show because it's a live show and you never know. You really want to double, triple check that stuff. But the gist of this is what's going to happen with a lot of your ShaperHub files now is that many of those are going to show up with encoded depths on Tool. One thing we want to get ahead of is if some files have been encoded with a depth of 0, that doesn't necessarily mean that you actually have to cut that at 0 depth. That means that maybe that person just exported a sketch that has 0 depth. There could be a couple of different ways that that happened, but now we've taught you how to edit those encoded depths and save that automatically to your workspace.
Yeah.
And that's for any creator on ShaperHub,
Exactly.
not just us. There are going to be a lot of encoded depth files out there.
We've kept Russ really busy by updating every single hardware file with encoded depths, so please use it.
Yeah, but it's my pleasure, really. Yeah, that's really everything that we've got written down on the whiteboard. Jake,
We cruised through it pretty quickly.
You want to say anything while I look over here into our show notes on the computer and make sure that we didn't miss anything? Maybe
Sure.
a little something about the giveaway and the Q&A yet again,
Yes.
just to really drive that home.
Again, the question at the bottom of the board should be, what is your favorite or what is your go-to design software? We want to hear about it, even if it's Studio. And if it is Studio, good on you. When you answer that question, you get in for the running for a swag pack, a t-shirt, or an 8mm collet, which opens you up to a whole range of new bits. For example, the 16mm clearing bit or the 8mm 3-flute long cutter that we sell. All bits are awesome. That's my go-to bit, that 8mm. I love it. But honestly, just talking about encoded depth and how valuable that is, especially when it comes to hardware, because hardware is a variety. It's never going to be exactly ½ inch, but you want to make sure that your pockets are the perfect depth. So having that all built in is a really big deal.
I do have one thing
Yes.
that we kind of glossed over and that I think a lot of people here will identify with. For editing, not just encoding, but editing encoded depths on Tool. Why do we do this? It's because you don't always want to have to go back to the computer. If you made a little mistake in Studio or in Fusion 360, you want to be able to fix it on Tool. So just a quick reminder that this is hopefully something that keeps you in the flow in the woodshop, doesn't have you wrestling with digital design, something that actually eases the use of digital design and makes all of your projects easier, more fun, and more successful.
Yeah. This is great. I used to encourage people to have a scrap of paper or a notebook next to them for things like depths and offsets, but it's all in there now.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.